Hello, my name is and my testimonial is long overdue. It's been 2 years that I don't have emetophobia, and I had it since I was like 5 years old. I also had a memory that I thought was like the beginning of emetophobia, and I really didn't think there was a way that I could live a life without it. It was part of my identity, and soon depression and anxiety also became part of my identity. And I thought that I just had bad brain chemistry. It was something, it's as soon as you have a belief, your brain also helps you come up with evidence. So I was thinking like, oh well, my grandma used to struggle with depression, my dad has this, or my mom could have that, maybe that's why I just have kind of just bad brain genetics, and there's very little I can do, or maybe there's some tools and techniques that can help me manage these things pretty much throughout my life until the day I die. And it was only when emetophobia started getting in the way of my career that I was like, okay, no, I really need to do something about this. And I was looking online and I found one which was exposure therapy, and I was like, okay, if there's anything I can do but exposure therapy, I'm so truly yet just, I don't like using the word desperate, but it really felt that way. It had been over 10 years that I had been looking for help with mental health, and I had tried alternative things like Reiki, yoga, homeopathy, like eating better, working out, trying to sleep more hours, and also the more traditional methods of like psychiatrist, psychologist, and the psychologist and psychiatrist medication. I was on citalopram, CBT, EMDR, tons of self-help books, went to self-help seminars, and some of these self-help seminars and books helped either while I was reading them or like while I was at the seminar, or only for a few weeks after. Actually, EMDR did help me for about 6 months, but I was really looking for something that was forever. And I was greedy about it because I was like, my life, not to sound dramatic, but it really depended on it because it's your quality of life. So, and I find it very tough to understand that there's so many people around like today suffering either the same way that I was suffering before or even worse. And so I really believe that obviously I recommend the Thrive program to absolutely every single person, but specifically if you have emetophobia, like it's just a no-brainer. And when I was looking at the program, because when I was looking online I saw the exposure therapy, and then I saw the emetophobia, and I love books, and I laughed out loud, and I was like, there is no way that a book can help me in ways that traditional therapy and alternative things that I had tried to do over 10 years and spent so much money on. So really it was all the testimonial videos that I saw where you have people that don't owe anything to this book or the organization, and still want to put their faces out there, tell their stories, however vulnerable it may sometimes feel, but actually the relief of actually coming back to who you really are underneath it all, like underneath the depression and anxiety, there's still you, joyous you, amazing you. And so to be able to go back to that pure, amazing version of you is completely priceless, and I think worth going out there and saying like, hey, yeah, this was me and this is you. And I was one of the many people who thought, okay, well, great, it's worked for a lot of people, but it's not going to work for me because like my case is really tough. I've had it, since I was 5. So I've had it all my life, over 25 years. And other people have not been able to help me. I don't think there's any cure there. And like my brain, obviously, it's not just emetophobia, it's depression, anxiety, it's an extra difficult brain. So many professionals haven't been able to help me. So most likely it's not going to work. And I got the book and I started reading it, and within 2 weeks I noticed a change, and that was so incredibly exciting because I was like, I've been looking for something that is so concise. I mean, I didn't even, it didn't even have to be concise and clear, but Thrive is both concise and clear, and it's funny and direct, and has little cartoon drawings as well, and it's so accessible to absolutely, I think, most part of the population. And then, unfortunately, my father, who had been very, very sick for many years, passed away. So after a few weeks, I realized, so one of the things that is important with the Thrive program when you start applying it is that you have to take it very, very seriously, in the sense of you have to apply yourself and really do the exercises. And, you know, I'm one of those people that really highlights and makes notes in the margins and like puts little post-it notes, and I really studied the heck out of this, because it was kind of like, I saw it kind of like my again, not to be dramatic, but lifeline. It really was. I had tried, I felt so much, and I had been close to giving up a few years back, and I told myself, you know what, like I need to find a cure. Yeah, and I just really pushed myself to find a cure to my mental health issues. Okay, I just want to be completely honest, and my depression and anxiety had gotten to a point that I didn't see the point of going through everyday life if it had to be as painful as what I was going through. My dad had been incredibly successful, and I felt embarrassed and ashamed that I struggled with taking the public transport, and I thought to myself, like, if I struggle with such small things, there's no way that I can ever achieve something like my dad did. And so I was like, okay, well then, and I'm already an embarrassment and a failure, and I'm just a burden to my family and stuff like that. And it's funny, not really funny, haha, but like, it's curious how our thoughts can seem so real. So one night, you know, after the period of my life that I was waking up every night at 3 a.m. and like heart pounding, and when I finally like told my mom was like, but what's going on? You know, what are you worried about? What are you stressed about? And I'm like, it's not logical. I wish I could tell you. I mean, there's nothing in a gazillion things that could be causing it. So anyway, it was one dark night of the soul, as Hollywood films have, which is kind of a breaking point of a character, when I realized, okay, I don't want to continue living if it's going to be so painful to just get through the day. That's when I made the promise to myself, okay, I'm gonna find a cure. And it was many years later that I found the Thrive program. I'm so grateful, and that's the reason why I want to do this video, because if there's any one person that is suffering as well and has a hope that they can find a solution and really improve their lives, honestly, it's closer and it's more achievable than I believe you can ever imagine. So here's to you and to your journey. One thing I'll say is that I worked really, 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 really hard in applying the concepts of Thrive, and I still do it now, but it's more like embedded, because you need to work really, really hard at the beginning for the first few weeks, because you're changing completely the way you think. So obviously the way you think it's kind of like any muscle. Like if you want to be really healthy and you start from an unhealthy place, say for instance with like diet and going to the gym, the first few weeks it's going to be really hard, because you're doing something completely different that feels alien, that feels maybe weird or wrong. And it certainly felt like that for me at the first few exercises, where I was like, what? I was so used to pushing myself and talking badly at myself to kind of spur myself into action and to change and to do better. And I had done really well at school, and I thought, okay, I can achieve great grades. So I need to keep pushing myself. But actually, if I just talk to myself badly every single second of the day, I just ended up demoralizing myself. And nobody benefited from that specific situation. So going back to, I do have ADHD, in case you're wondering how the story goes, but hopefully you've stayed with me. And then when my dad passed away, I realized that I started faltering with applying the exercises. I wasn't showing up in the same way. And that's when I got a coach, Rupa, and I saw in her bio that she had gone to Peru. And I thought immediately, okay, at least I have someone that has been to my country and can understand that I'm not the typical kind of British person, and maybe there's a factor there that might be helpful in our journey together as a coach and mentee, and it was fantastic. She didn't buy into any of the woe is me and terrible things, and anyway, she was just so helpful. And I couldn't have asked, I think, for a better coach. So I'm very grateful. But I also know that if my dad hadn't passed away at that time, I don't think I would have gotten a coach, because I think the book is so clear and helpful. And I really felt that it took me by the hand as a reader and just like guided me with a lot of, just pace, which means like you're not going too slow that it's too safe and boring, and you're not going too fast that it's scary and confusing. It's actually just, at your pace anyway, because you're reading it. But I think it's cool to know that you have both possibilities. You can just get the book and you can read it yourself and apply it. But remember, the key factor is that you have to put in the effort. Reading the book itself would do nothing but just, an enjoyable, interesting read. It's actually in the application of it. But then if you want to have a coach as well, then there's the option there. And then I signed up to train as a coach as well. But that's a different story. I hope this story gives you conviction or belief that this really works. But of course, at the center of it all is you putting the work to make it work. Oh, and I just wanted to add one thing. I remember watching all these videos and thinking like, oh my gosh, I'd imagine that when you have perfect mental health, you're going to be all glammed up with like fabulous hair and makeup and just looking like amazing. And it made me think that I remember when I came back to the UK, because I was home for when my dad had passed away and I was home for a few months. And I came back and I was walking down the same street that I had walked for years. But everything was different. Everything on the street was exactly the same. But everything felt different because primary reality is within, right? Like how we experience the world is completely within. And because I had completely changed the way my reality inside, I was like, it looked, obviously it objectively looked the same, but it looked different, like it felt different. And yeah, so maybe don't get disappointed if I'm not wearing like all this amazing makeup and hair and clothes to prove the point that I'm doing much better, but just to tell you that it works. I don't have depression, I don't have anxiety, I don't have emetophobia, and I just wish that freedom upon anybody. And I will say that, as you saw that there were some dogs barking earlier, challenges still happen, right? Life still is challenging. However, then you have you have tools to deal with those challenges. And the other cool thing is that as you gain confidence, you can also choose to take on more challenges. So like do more challenging things in your life. You can either wait for life to give you a challenge, or you can take on challenges, and that can also serve as evidence that you're pretty strong, you're pretty cool, and you can do tough things. I think also working out helps as a physical reminder that you can endure pain. Aside from that, that's all I wanted to say, and cheers to you and your mental health journey.